All right, what's up, guys? This is going to be a video that's pretty highly requested, I'd say, because I always talk about things from like a frontline point of view, and a lot of you are like, oh, like what about like backliners or damage dealers, supports, all that type of stuff. Like, you want that point of view, but you guess you want it from my channel, even though I know there are more out there. But anyways, I decided, oh, here, let me play this video so you guys have something to watch. I decided that I would bring one of my friends on that plays Wizard, who's my teammate that I play with mostly. I'm sure if you watch me, you've seen him before. It's Benas. I have him here to talk about his perspective in a fight. Specifically, this is mostly going to be about Wizard. He has played other classes, but generally where he's coming from will be for like, the Wizard point of view, but I'm just going to call it the backline point of view. So, I mean, like I said, if you don't know him, he's a really good player. Been on the top of the leaderboards. He was like rank 1 for Warlock before. He plays Wizard. He's played a lot of stuff, so he's a really good player. And I think he can give you guys a pretty good idea of the backline point of view, so to speak. There, Bennett, you can say hi or whatever, and I'll just pull the questions up. Just like tell anything you
Yo,
want about yourself. All right, there you go.
yo, what's up? I'm Benas. I mainly started playing in playtest 4. I started off as a wizard player, played Warlock when it came out, hit rank 1 on that, and then I swapped to a wizard, and just been hitting top of leaderboards on that ever since.
Yeah, there you go. So to start off with, I'm pretty much gonna be going over the same stuff I've went over myself for like frontliners. However, I'm gonna be asking him the questions and he's gonna give me the answers. So to for the first question, when you go into a fight, what do you like? How do you like identify your goal or your job or like what you're trying to achieve in the fight?
Yeah, so coming from a wizard's point of view, the main thing I always try to do is I try to identify the biggest threat to me. So one comm I'll almost always throw out is like, who are we going against? Like, who's there? Because I want to know who we're going up against. So, for example, let's say we're going versus some sort of like buff ball comp where it's like barbarian, bard, cleric. The only thing that poses a threat to me in that comp is the bard. So I'm going to be wanting to kill the bard or do something to kill the bard right off the bat, or position to myself to where the bard won't be able to get to me, or I could throw spells freely. And that's where most of everything comes from. Because if you just eliminate the biggest threat to yourself as the backline, then you are able to carry the fight from there. Then you're going to be able to kill everything else that's not a threat to you and just kind of carry. This will be a little different if you're going to run into like a different team comp, whether it's just like triple rogue where everything wants to kill you. And then what you're going to try to do is you're literally just playing your life. You're going to be hugging your teammates for dear life. You're going to be yelling the second you see a rogue come out of invis. Uh, just you want to play really selfishly as a whole, and you want to make sure you're playing for yourself almost always. Because if I'm playing with Todd, almost always I'll yell at him to just go in and trade with someone. Because if Todd dies, but he takes someone out with him, I feel much more comfortable in a situation where I could just carry and go in like a 2v2 versus like a fighter and a cleric.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could just cook, I can throw my spells, I can kill them very easily if
Mm-hmm.
they kill the biggest threat to me.
And that's something else that a lot of players don't realize. Even though this is a team game, sometimes playing selfish is the correct play. Like he said, for example, he's playing Wizard, and then Wizard is definitely one of the classes as the biggest solo carry potential. If you play your life and you recognize that you are the most important person on your team, it doesn't matter. Like you said, for example, if I die, but I kill someone and I'm letting him sit in a 2v2, I'm confident that he's going to win it. And that happened many, many times in our fights. Is I'll die, but I have a cleric that's running res, so he can revive me after as long as they win the 2v2. So as long as he eliminates whoever's the biggest threat to him or plays his life in a way that he feels he needs to, he can carry the fight, which is, that's something that you should recognize. Never put yourself in a spot because the DPS is not a character that should ever be sacrificing himself for a teammate. You are generally the most valuable person on your team, not including your healer, only if they're going to revive you. Because the thing is, you're the people, like, or DPS are the people that have the potential to kill and to carry a fight. Tanks and clerics or supports, they don't really have that same potential. So it is always really important to recognize when you need to play your life and when you can carry a fight. All right,
Yeah,
on to the network. Do you have anything else you want to talk about that, or are you good?
yeah, no, I was just saying, yeah,
Mhm.
that's about right.
All right, and on to the next thing. When you go in a fight, how are you looking to position? Like, what is the positioning you were trying to do?
Yeah, so when you're playing as a wizard or a ranger, the biggest thing that you want to be able to do is let your healer play the game while you also are able to play the game. So, for example, if there's like a tight corridor that you're going through, you might want to hug either the left wall or the right wall, so your cleric can also go through and heal the front line as you're trying to throw spells or shoot your arrows or do whatever you're trying to do. And if there's like a doorway that you're going through, you have to be able to kind of like discern whether it's more important for your cleric to go through and pocket your front line or for you to go through and also help the front line like do damage.
Yeah, that's something
And
that we've personally had a lot of experience with testing out for sure.
A lot of issues, a lot of conflict,
Uh-huh.
but that's just kind of how the game goes. You kind of have to live and you learn, and you kind of get better at that the more you play.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing that kind of comes into that is like knowing what room you're in. So like, if you're in pyramid, you I don't really think you want to be at the bottom because it's very easy for like if you're a wizard on high ground to like just throw. You can hit your splash fireballs easier. You can hit your like you can hit your things that travel over time. Your projectiles a lot easier. But if you're shooting upwards, it's a lot harder to hit that splash without like hitting something accidentally, clipping something, or just you only can really go for direct on the projectiles rather than like something like a splash fireball.
Mm-hmm. That is
So just
something to keep in mind too. Is positioning is very key, especially not even just positioning in a fight, but like you said, positioning in the terrain around you or just the rooms you decide to be in. It is definitely depending on the team comp you play. It is very smart to avoid certain rooms and try to stick to others. Do you have anything else you want to say about
yeah.
that? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Uh, nah, nah, you're good. I mean, I think that's just about it. Just
Mm-hmm.
letting your cleric play the game or your healer, whatever, play the game while
Mm-hmm.
you're
Yeah.
able to do your job, especially.
Yeah. And I think we did cover this a bit earlier, because you did mention it, but what are you looking for in a fight? When you go into a fight, like, you start off 3v3, what are you looking for, or like, what are you trying to achieve in that fight?
Yeah, so obviously at the end of the day, we're trying to win the fight, make out with, but we're trying to kill the other team. So the best way you do that is by killing the biggest threat to you. So if you are like I said, as a wizard, if I kill either like a rogue, a bard, a ranger, those are like the three things that like you don't want to go against. And if you're like a ranger, then I'm not gonna lie, I don't play enough Ranger to to
Hmm.
give comments on that. But if you do, obviously you'll probably have your own personal experience with what you have troubles with, and that's what you want to let your team know that you need taken care of first.
Hmm.
Because if you have the space to work on, if you can like walk up, if you could shoot your arrows on Ranger, if you could throw out your spells on Wizard or Warlock, you will be infinitely more useful than someone that can't do that because you're actually able
Hmm.
to throw your shots.
And this is kind of gonna tie into it a bit. What would you say like your perfect situation is in a fight? Like at what point or how does a fight have to go for you to feel like you are in the perfect position? Like how do you put yourself in that perfect position?
Um, Normally, the way I like to put myself in a perfect position is I like to know where I'm going to be fighting beforehand, and I like to kind of bait my enemies into that area. So one thing I've been doing, especially in Wizard lately, is chain lightning dead ads.
Mm-hmm.
So if I see a dead skeleton, a dead zombie in the ground, I love to just bait teams directly into that. Then while they're standing on it, I just hit them all with a chain lightning
Mm-hmm.
and just be able to kill them with
Yeah.
that. And then this could be something similar with Rangers, where you like bait a team into like your traps, where you like know you know where you're fighting ahead of time, and you like prepare something that'll give you an advantage. You have an invis potted fighter because you know you're going to be baiting them into them.
Yeah.
Just something, just something that will give you the advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, if you're pushing into a team, it's much more likely that they're going to have something prepared if they know you're pushing into them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
So it's a lot harder to be. It's a lot
Mm-hmm.
harder to you're more likely to be caught off guard
Yeah, and that
while
really
playing that.
ties into positioning a lot too. It's like trying to put yourself in a position where you get to fight wherever you want. Like for example, like you said, chain lightning dead bodies. Let's take like or some any take any random room for example that has ads in it. You try to kill those ads specifically near the doors, so if they try to push, that there's something they have to go over. They can't avoid it. And like their
Mhm.
rangers do the same thing where they'll try to put themselves in a position where if you want to like you if you have to push them, you are pushing them in an area they've been sitting in for a while and they're prepared with traps and stuff ready. So that really just comes down to a lot of positioning and game knowledge and really map knowledge too of knowing whether or not people will have to push into you or they can avoid you. And that right there, just that alone could be a giant factor in who wins or loses a fight. Not even including like you can beat some very geared teams, even much more geared than yourself, just by having better positioning than them in a fight and being able to set up plays like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could do something similar by just constantly keeping an eye on your map and knowing where the storm is. So if you're playing near the edge of storm and you know it's going to be closing soon and you know they don't have any portals, you could take that early move instead of taking that like fight where you guys would both be going to the storm to get that better positioning and then force them to have to push into you or take that storm damage, which
Mm-hmm.
is just giving you an even bigger advantage.
Yep, I agree completely. All right, on to the next thing. This is going to be much more wizard specific than any other DPS, and it's going to be about resource usage, specifically spell usage. As you know, pretty much every wizard runs 10 spell these days, so you do have a lot of spells. However, they did remove clarities a while ago, thank God. So, if you're using spells in a fight, you don't really have that luxury of having them constantly regenerating anymore. So I'm gonna ask you, how do you think about your spell usage, or what about what spells you're using and when to use them in fights?
Yeah, so one big thing that this really comes down to is just testing it out yourself. I mean, there's a lot of like general use cases that you can boil everything down to. Everything will come down to you playing it and obviously understanding it yourself. But I'll give you a very baseline of how to use like each spell. So something like lightning strike is something you want to use when there's something obstructing your line of sight directly onto them. So if there's like a metal grate in between you two, if there's a player in between you two, so if your front line standing in front of you, you want to lightning strike through them, so you could place it on the ground past your front line and hit them without even having to hit your front line.
Hmm.
Uh, Something like zap is when you have a very easy line of sight of them and you just want to spam spells that'll do a lot of damage. However, I will mention you don't normally want to spam zaps on clerics because they will have high will and they will not really take the burn damage of it.
Hmm.
Something like Ice Bolt is something that's really good to combo with after a slow, or something to use instead of a fireball as a projectile that's like single target, close, easy to hit, and it'll slow them a little bit as well. So if you're kiting if you're kiting like a fighter or a barbarian and you hit a slow on them, you can just start spamming ice bolts on them, and they just really can't do anything to catch up to you. Fireballs are more of an entry kind of spell that I like to use. So like I'll use them at the start of a fight, but never like after the fight unless they're trying to run away. And it's mainly also used to open doors. So one thing that I really like to do is if you throw a fireball above a door, it'll still break it. So that's something that you could do to help your team bust through a door with them even having to take damage. So they could keep on W keying onto the door without the worry of having to take damage. Magic Missile is kind of your last ditch effort or a zone control kind of thing. So if there is a rogue on you, you cannot run. That rogue will be faster than you. You just sit there, you throw a Magic Missile into them, and you pray that you have more damage than they do. Or if a team has to push into a doorway and you see them pushing, you could just throw a Magic Missile there, and it'll buy enough space where they have to either eat them and lose their whole entire health bar, or just wait.
Hmm.
Haste and Viz, obviously things that you're just going to be using to give yourself more move speed, uh, give yourself better positioning in a fight, to help your team also get better positioning in a fight. One thing that I don't see used anywhere nearly enough, and this is the most broken spell in the game that nobody
Hmm.
wants to use, is slow.
Yep.
Please, for the love of God, start using slow if you're a wizard player. If you're running 5 spell, use slow. I think slow is better than haste. It's better
Hmm.
than invis. I think it is the best
Definitely.
spell in the game because it doesn't just slow them by 40%. It reduces their action speed by 40%. They can't swing. They can't run at you. They can't do anything. They're just sitting ducks that are there for you to pelt spells at. You can slow into Magic Missile. You could slow into any spell you have,
Hmm.
and it's almost guaranteed to hit.
Yeah.
Fireballs are a little iffy, so I'd still go for splashes on those, but
Yeah.
you
And
definitely
like
don't have to use
slow into
splashes for
lightning
that.
strike, you can almost guarantee lightning strikes with a slow if you aim it
Yeah,
properly. It's insane.
yeah. And the final spell, or not the final spell. I'll go over ignite first. Ignite only use it if you have a smite cleric,
Yeah.
or if you're doing some
Heck
cringe
W.
melee build. But whatever. Anyways, now to the big boy, chain lightning.
Hmm.
I feel like Chain Lightning is one of the most misused spells in the game because I feel like people just try to use it at all times because they think it's Giga Broken. It is Giga Broken, but only when it's in the correct situation. So if you are able to use it as an opener, as the first spell, like similar to how you would use a fireball, where you can just get a triple chain lightning onto them and then push into them, that's the best way to do it. Or if you have to 1v3, then you want to chain lightning because you offer no harm to your team. Because all it takes is that one skeleton on the ground, and Todd knows this, to end
Hmm.
up having a chain go from one person
Oh
on the
boy.
enemy team all the way back to you.
Yep. I've been there before.
And the
More than a
dead
few
adds on the
times.
ground, so it's also just something you have to set up. It's something that you have to think about very actively. It's not a spell you just throw out willy nilly like a fireball, like an ice bolt. You have to think about it actively
Hmm.
when you're using chain
Yeah.
lightning. You
It,
can't just like use it
if you
random.
use it incorrectly, it can wipe your team. If you use it correctly, it can wipe their team. It's a very 50-50 spell that requires a lot of knowledge to use it correctly. If not, your team's probably gonna die, and they're gonna hate you for it. They're gonna be kicking you off Wizard after that game.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right, on to the last thing that I have to ask you. When you're in a fight, what kind of information are you looking to give and receive? This could be, about like, what kind of comms are you putting out? What kind of comms do you want to receive? What kind of, or what do what are you trying to get in a fight? When you're looking at a fight, what information are you taking in and that you're giving to your team that you feel they need to know?
Yeah. So something that I was mentioning earlier is like the things that are the biggest threat to you. So if a cleric has like judgment, you want to know that. If a barbarian has Achilles, it's just like skills in general that are going to pose a threat to you. You're gonna want to know what they are. So that's something that you're gonna want to receive. You obviously you're gonna want to know the team comp of the enemy team more than anything, so you can be prepared for everything. Um, Comms you would give. Um, Honestly, as a DPS player, I feel like it's not your job to be giving as many comms besides like saying like before like okay, this is the person we need to target. Outside, I feel like that's mainly like the front line's job when they're taking space, pushing when they want to, whatever. Uh, hmm.
I think one thing that's I think one probably the most important comm that a DPS or a backliner can give is whenever they are under threat of dying or whenever because you
Oh
obviously the thing
yeah,
is generally you're going to be looking at the fight from a different POV than your teammates because you're farther back, so you can see more things. So for example, the only things you really need to call out I think here are you need to like for one because you can tell if someone's overextending usually, right? Like you can see that
yeah.
because you have information they don't. You can see more of the fight, or if you see more people coming in that other people don't see, you relay that information. But like I said, I think the most important thing is just let your teammates know if you are under threat, even if you're like not directly getting hit. If you know you're in a position where you could die, that is something you should tell your teammates just to give your teammates the information. Because I mentioned this in a previous video, but for example, like let's say your frontliner is your primary shot caller. You want to feed them all the information they need to make the correct calls.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so yeah, that's one thing that we do a lot where like we might like overextend a little bit too much and you need your wizard obviously will be see like another team pushing in or they'll see like or you won't see like a rogue that's going in and they'll calm like yo don't push in the rogue could be like invis on me
Hmm.
whatever. So yeah, basically you were saying it correctly, just things that are gonna put threat onto you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. I think that pretty much sums it up for the questions I have here. Ben, is there anything else you'd like to mention regarding it that you think we have skipped over so far, or I think it's pretty much covered it pretty well?
Yeah, no, I think that covers it pretty well.
Hmm.
I think Wizard is one of the most broken classes in the game. I enjoy playing it.
Hmm.
I think it takes a really good player to be able to abuse how broken it is, but honestly, I think it's worth it just sitting there and putting in the hours
Hmm.
to play it. And playing backline is always really fun. One thing that people don't really get is how much pressure it is, and it's a lot of on your plate. You have to be able to do a lot of things. You have to be able to
Hmm.
carry the fight if people die. It's a lot of pressure on yourself, but at the end of the day, you just need to be able to enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
And
And
and, and the feeling you get when you win that 1v3, when you solo win a fight,
hmm
it is exhilarating and you will never want to do anything
yeah, because
else.
as when you're a DPS, you are the highlight player. You are the man of the match. You're the one to watch, and it's just thing is when you're usually squishy, and if you make one mistake, that could be it. You could enter your whole team, but hey, it just comes with the territory. But anyways, this is like pretty been a this is gonna be. I mean, this isn't like a super like in depth video. It's pretty much just covering like a lot of what I mean. I assume both of us consider like elementary stuff, like very surface level knowledge. However, I just want to like get you guys because like I said, a lot of people ask for like a backline point of view because obviously I give a frontline one. So I wanted to bring my friend on to talk about his experience with Wizard specifically, and from a backline point of view because Wizard is generally the easiest character to kill because they're the least tanky, even though they shouldn't be. But anyways. Yeah, that'll sum it up for now. If you guys liked, tell me. I may be able to do something like this for other classes. I'll probably get a cleric to do a support point of view, not just a backline one next. But then I could do more specific, do like ranger, rogue, all that stuff. Because I mean, I could do that if that's something you guys are interested in. But if you enjoyed, feel free to like and comment. I enjoy reading all your comments, even the mean ones. Those are the funny ones. I always laugh about those. And feel free to subscribe too if you really liked. I'm close to 2,000 subscribers, which is pretty awesome. But as always, until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Peace. All right, tell them bye, Benas.
Goodbye. Compete my wizard guide I'm making soon. Bye
Yeah,
bye.
I'll link his YouTube down below. Go check him out.